ますます燃える必殺のカンフースパルタン X。
It very well may be no exaggeration to say that the fighting genre of video games began in 1984 with the release of Kung Fu to the arcade. First appearing in Japan, then a month later in North America, this game was based loosely on both Bruce Lee's Game of Death and the Jackie Chan Sammo Hung film Wheels on Meals, even reusing the names Thomas and Sylvia from the latter movie as the protagonist and his stolen love interest. Originally called Spartan X in Japan, a title I still don't quite understand, the main premise is that your kung fu master must rescue his girlfriend who's been kidnapped by Mr. X. Maybe his first name is Spartan? And taken to his penthouse suite at the top of his hideout, the Devil's Temple. Each of the 5 levels in the temple is filled with a bunch of baddies you must defeat before reaching the boss of that level. Make it to the top and defeat Mr. X to finally reunite with Sylvia and win the game. The arcade game was ported to just about every home system at the time, including the Atari 7800 and the Famicom, with the Famicom port handled by Shigeru Miyamoto himself. Miyamoto went on to credit his work on the port of Spartan X, particularly the smooth scrolling and motion, as a main driver for him to develop the original Super Mario Bros. He liked the bright background as opposed to just solid black, as well as making the players strategize while moving along a horizontal playfield. The genesis of 2 other genres can also be traced back to Kung Fu: the side-scrolling beat-em-up and the one-on-one fighter. The prior is obvious, with such classics as Renegade, which also kicked off the Double Dragon and Kunio-kun series, Final Fight, and Streets of Rage, enhancing the gameplay style directly. Move through an area, beat up the toadies, then take on a boss at the end of the level. Those boss fights, however, stuck in developer Takahashi Nishiyama's mind, and shortly after he left IREM, he found himself at Capcom working on another game that you may have heard of, Street Fighter. Years later at SNK, he was also responsible for kicking off the Fatal Fury, Samurai Showdown, and King of Fighters series. Building on the success of Spartan X, IREM had plans for a follow-up titled Beyond Kung Fu, but they didn't feel it was going quite how they liked. They shelved it for a few years, but came back to it in 1988 with a change in scenery to an American setting and named it Vigilante. Another sequel was also planned, simply called Spartan X2, and that title did end up being released in Japan in 1991, but it never made it to the rest of the world. Until it was included as a freebie packed in with the Retrobit Generation's mini console as Kung Fu Master 2. Pretty impressive influence on today's gaming landscape for a title with such humble beginnings that many modern gamers may not even recall. It's actually pretty fun too, as long as you stay away from that 7800 version. I swear I couldn't land a punch to save Thomas's life. Any fond memories playing Kung Fu or Spartan X in the arcade or at home? Simply want to pay homage to this grandfather of modern gaming? Let me know in the comments below or on Twitter at TesseractUnfold. Meanwhile, please like, subscribe, spread the word, and I'll catch you again next week.
Game over.